Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. He raised his glass, looked at me like I was just background noise, and said it with that polished confidence men like him were like cologne. Maybe I'll borrow your wife tonight, Ryan. Everyone around us laughed. Loud. Real. The kind of laugh that means, he gets away with this all the time. I watched her, Laura, more than I listened to them. She didn't stiffen, didn't wince, didn't even glance toward me. She smiled. That slow, social smile. The kind people give when they want to stay in the spotlight. She tilted her head, said something flirty I couldn't quite hear, and laughed with them. And just like that, I knew exactly where I stood. Right there in a rooftop crowd full of wine glasses and artificial lighting. I became invisible. I didn't say a word. Not at the moment. Not later. I didn't pull her aside. Didn't make a scene. Didn't crack a joke back to prove I had a spine. No. I just watched. I memorized her posture. The way she angled her body toward him. The way she touched his forearm when she walked past to grab another drink. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't oblivious. She was fully present, and I was optional. The irony is, I was invited. She asked me to come. Said it would mean a lot. Said she wanted me there to see her world. Apparently in her world, I was a placeholder. A role that came with no script, no lines, and no respect. Tom, her boss, was everything I wasn't. Loud, dominant, successful in a loud way. The kind of man who commands attention just by being in the room. And he knew it. He used it like a blade. The joke wasn't spontaneous. It was aimed. He wanted to see if I'd blink. And I didn't. Not because I'm brave, but because I'd already stopped blinking months ago. The rest of the night blurred into images. Her hand on his arm again. His laugh too close to her ear. Her smile too wide to be innocent. I kept walking in and out of conversations, nodding at people I didn't care to remember, answering questions I didn't ask to be part of. I watched the clock, counted the seconds between her glances in my direction. They never came. When we left, she walked ahead of me. Didn't ask if I enjoyed myself. Didn't notice that I hadn't said more than 10 words in 2 hours. In the parking lot, she scrolled through her phone while I drove us home. She laughed at something she read. And I sat there, hands on the wheel, already building the exit in my mind. It wasn't the joke that did it. It was the fact that it didn't surprise her. The fact that she didn't defend me. Didn't even see me. That was the night I realized. She loved being admired more than she loved being mine. And I was done trying to compete with the stage she built for herself. She laughed all the way home, replaying the party like it was the best night of her life. This team is finally starting to loosen up, she said. Tom's hilarious, right? You never know what he'll say. I drove in silence. She didn't notice. Too busy scrolling through her photos, choosing which ones to post. I caught a glimpse of the caption. Work hard. Play harder collision #OfficeFam. I was in one of the photos. Off to the side. Half-turned, mid-blink. A shape. A silhouette. A man filling a space beside her. Nothing more. I looked at the road, then at her reflection in the window. She was glowing. Still high off the attention, the compliments, the proximity to the man who made the joke. She didn't ask how I felt. Didn't say, that was too much, wasn't it? Didn't even offer me a glance of reassurance. Because in her world, nothing happened. In her world, that joke was just harmless banter. And my silence? Just my usual quiet nature. But I wasn't quiet. I was recording. There's something hollow about the moment you realize you're not her pride, just her accessory. I wasn't her husband tonight. I was her prop. The man who smiled politely while someone else hinted at wanting her, and she smiled back. I used to think love looked like showing up for her, holding her bag at events, letting her shine. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being the man she wanted to shine for. She wanted to sparkle on her own, wanted the admiration, the attention, the flirtation dressed as confidence. And me? I was just the guy driving her home while she laughed at someone else's punchline. At a red light, she reached over and touched my arm. You're really quiet. Was the party boring? I didn't look at her. Just tired. She nodded, satisfied with the answer. Turned the music up. Some upbeat pop song she hummed along to like she hadn't just erased me from our marriage with one smile. Back home, she went straight to the bathroom to remove her makeup. I sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, jacket still zipped. She came out in a t-shirt, kissed me on the cheek, and crawled into bed without asking if I was coming. Like this was just another night. Like I wasn't already gone. I lay there awake, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun like a clock with no hands. Not angry, not heartbroken, just empty. The kind of empty that doesn't scream. The kind that starts building a plan in absolute silence. She laughed all the way home, and I memorized every second of it. Because one day, I wanted to remember how she sounded when she still thought I'd never leave. It took my brother one look to know something had shifted. We hadn't seen each other in weeks. Life, distance, excuses. But that day, I drove out to see him without telling Laura. Said I needed fresh air. That was true. I just didn't mention I was done breathing recycled silence. He opened the door, squinted at me like he was looking through glass, and didn't say hey. Didn't say, "You look tired." He said, "You're not him anymore." I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't need to, because I already knew. The version of me he remembered, the one who laughed easily, the one who had a spine that didn't bend in public. He hadn't seen that man in years. And neither had I. We sat in the backyard. Cold beers, no music, no distractions. Just two brothers pretending to talk about sports, when both of us knew something deeper was bleeding under the surface. He didn't pry. He just gave me the space to speak. And I didn't. Because I wasn't ready to tell him the truth. That my wife had become fluent in invisible disrespect. That it wasn't cheating, not in the obvious way, but it felt like something worse. It was permission. She had given herself permission to make me smaller. To laugh when someone else put his hand on her lower back. To let a man joke about borrowing her, and then tell me I was too sensitive when I didn't play along. Jack used to call her sharp. Said she had that energy, the kind that drew people in. And maybe she did. But somewhere along the way, she stopped using it to build with me, and started using it to build around me. That's the part one couldn't explain. How someone can look loyal, sound supportive, and still make you feel like a stranger in your own marriage. Before I left that day, Jack looked at me again, this time more gently. "You've always been calm," he said. "But calm doesn't mean invisible." I nodded, but the words sank deeper than he knew. Because for months, I had been shrinking. Not because she asked me to, but because I thought it would help her shine. I thought stepping back would make her proud. That silence was maturity. That being secure meant letting things slide. But now I realized she didn't see restraint. She saw absence. And she liked it that way. That night, I looked in the mirror longer than usual. Not to fix anything. Not out of vanity. I just needed to see what was left of me. And what I saw wasn't the man she married. It was the man she taught me to become. Quiet. Convenient. Replaceable. I splashed cold water on my face, stared again, and made a promise. This version of me? He's got 2 weeks left. Max. And when I leave, it won't be with a shout. It'll be with nothing. Because you can't take what was never held. We were in line at her favorite coffee shop. The one with the minimalist vibe, overpriced lattes, and names scribbled in cursive on every to-go cup. She loved this place. Said it made her feel seen. She ordered like usual, confident, warm, bright. Her tone shifted. Her smile deepened. And when the barista made a joke about the drink being as strong as her personality, she laughed like it meant something. I watched it all happen 2 feet away. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't feel jealous. I felt invisible. There was a time when that smile was mine. Private. Earned. It would show up in the kitchen when I handed her coffee before work. Or when I whispered something dumb as we fell asleep. But somewhere between then and now, she'd rebranded it. Turned it into a public performance. A reward for strangers. A reflex for attention. And I wasn't even in the audience anymore. She took the drink, turned to me like nothing happened, and said, "Want to sit outside?" I nodded. We sat at a corner table. She sipped her latte, scrolled through her phone, and told me about her team's latest project. I listened. Quiet. Calm. Not because I didn't have thoughts, but because I knew none of them would land. When I looked at her, I didn't see betrayal. I saw indifference. That effortless ability to make everyone feel special, except the man she wakes up next to. I'd become safe. Predictable. A permanent fixture with no story attached. She used to call that stability. Now she acted like it was sedation. I wasn't the man who made her light up anymore. I was the man who paid for brunch and drove her home. A young couple sat down at the next table. Their knees touched. They were laughing about nothing. The girl leaned in like the world outside him didn't exist. I looked at them, then back at Laura. She was taking a photo of her coffee for her story, framing it, filtering it, capturing the moment. While I sat inside it, fading. That afternoon, she posted the photo. Caption: Sundays are for recharging. No mention of me. Not even a tag. And it clicked. I wasn't the man she recharged with. I was the background she recharged from. That night, I opened a private folder on my laptop, created a new doc, named it Exit. No drama. No revenge plan. Just structure. Step 1. Start separating accounts. Step 2. Find a place, small, quiet, mine. It wasn't escape. It was return. To the version of me who didn't have to beg to be looked at. To the man who once walked into rooms and didn't feel like wallpaper. Some people fantasize about the confrontation, the dramatic exit, the yelling, the last word. But I didn't want that. I didn't need fire. I needed a door. So I built one. Late at night, after she fell asleep scrolling, I opened that folder. Exit. Clean title. Clear intention. First step. I called a leasing office near the river. Quiet. No frills. A place built for starting over, not showing off. I booked a unit under my name. 1 bedroom. 3rd floor. View of the water, not the skyline. She wouldn't like it, which meant it was perfect. Next came the accounts. We'd always shared everything. Bank, cards, subscriptions. She liked the idea of us, financially. But the truth is, she never checked the statements. So I opened my own account. Moved my direct deposit over. Canceled the Netflix she always used but never paid for. Cut off the card she used for brunch with people who never asked about me. I didn't leave a paper trail. I left a digital absence. The kind that doesn't trigger alarms, just makes you feel colder without knowing why. Work was trickier. I was tied to a firm that overlapped too much with her industry. Our networks blended, our reputations braided. So I called an old colleague, one I'd mentored years ago, before I started fading. He answered on the second ring. Said they had a spot. Remote. Flexible. Quiet. He didn't ask why I was leaving. He just said, I've still got respect for you. Come build something that's yours. That was the first time in months I felt like a man again, not a ghost with a ring on his finger. Over the next few days, I boxed up small things. Papers. Copies. Keys. The kind of items no one notices missing until they're already gone. I moved into the new place. No ceremony. No guilt. Just steps. Each one away from the noise she confused for love. At night, she didn't notice. She was too busy watching shows I never cared about. Laughing at reels. Falling asleep mid-scroll. She didn't ask where I was emotionally. Didn't wonder why I was going to bed earlier. Didn't question why the man beside her had stopped reaching. Because she'd gotten used to my silence. Too used. And I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't jealous of the barista or the boss or the version of her she only gave to strangers. I was free. Quietly, privately, fully. I didn't plan revenge. I planned a return. To a life where my presence didn't have to compete with her performance. The first time she noticed something was off, it wasn't dramatic. It was in the small silence between 2 sentences. She paused mid-laugh, looked at me across the living room, and said, You've been weird lately. Quieter than usual. I looked up from my laptop. Just focused. She nodded, then stared a few seconds longer, like she was reading a stranger's face. But she moved on. Because that's what she always did. Move on without ever really looking back. I wasn't cold. I was blank. I didn't fight. Didn't disagree. Didn't joke or compliment or correct. I became a wall, polite, steady, unreadable. And it started to get to her. She would walk into the kitchen wearing something that once guaranteed my attention. I'd offer a nod, maybe a coffee's fresh, and go back to what I was doing. She would linger, expecting more. But I didn't give it. Because she'd spent too long treating my affection like background noise. Now the room was quiet, and the silence was deafening. She asked one night, Is there something you're not telling me? I said, No. I'm just no longer explaining things that don't need defending. That confused her. Because for years, I'd been the explainer. The validator. The one who made her feel heard, even when she wasn't listening. Now, I wasn't interested in being understood. She started testing. Sent me flirty texts during meetings. Tried cooking again twice in 1 week. Left her phone face up. Purposefully. But I didn't bite. Because it wasn't a game I wanted to win anymore. The prize had changed. And so had I. Then came the reflection. She stood in front of the mirror before a dinner out. Adjusted her dress. Smoothed her hair. Turned. Waited for the compliment. Silence. She looked at me through the mirror, expecting words. I met her eyes, nodded once, then walked out of the room. That was the moment it hit her. The echo she used to count on, the one that reminded her she was still desired, was gone. She started watching me more after that. Really watching. I'd catch her glancing at my phone, listening to my side of work calls, noticing when I came home late. Not because she cared, but because she could feel the distance growing faster than she could fill it. And the hardest part for her? There was nothing she could pin it on. No fight. No betrayal. No dramatic reveal. Just absence. Perfectly timed, perfectly quiet absence. I had already left. She just hadn't heard the door close yet. The text came in just past midnight. We should talk. No punctuation. No context. Just 5 words, sent from the same side of the bed where she now lay, facing the wall, pretending I might still be awake. I read it. Put the phone back down. Didn't reply. Instead, I got up, opened the window slightly, and let the cold air in. That was her first attempt. The first ripple in water she thought was still. Earlier that night, she'd cooked, lit candles, set the table, put on that blue dress she used to wear when she wanted something. There was wine, music. She even played our old playlist, the one we hadn't touched since our 3rd anniversary. I came home, smiled politely, ate in silence. She tried to talk. I listened. She poured dessert. I stood, said thanks, and went to bed. No kiss. No drama. Just closure delivered by routine. She lingered in the kitchen for a long time after, probably expecting me to come back, ask if something was wrong, throw her a lifeline. But I didn't, because nothing was wrong. Everything was just exactly what she allowed it to become. She started trying harder after that. Soft questions in the morning, random compliments in the afternoon, a late night, slightly too loud laugh at a text she hoped I'd ask about. I didn't, because her attention wasn't affection. It was strategy, a last-minute audition for a role she'd already abandoned. 2 nights later, I found her sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through old photos. She showed me one from a beach trip years ago. We were so happy here. I nodded. We could be that again, she added, almost a whisper. I shrugged. We're not those people anymore. That was the first time I saw her mask slip. Just for a second. But it was enough. The realization settled into her eyes like weight. I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't playing hard to get. I was gone. She cried in the shower the next morning. Quiet sobs. The kind she thought I wouldn't hear. I sat in the kitchen, sipping coffee, checking my lease transfer. The new place was ready. Keys waiting. Utilities set. Furniture delivered the day before. She didn't know. And she wouldn't. Because this wasn't a breakup. It was a disappearance. She texted again later that week. I know I've been distant. Can we just hit reset? I looked at the screen for a moment, then turned on music, opened the window wider, and let the message fade with the breeze. She walked through the door humming, shopping bags in one hand, keys jingling in the other. She was trying. You could hear it in the tone. Too bright, too forced. I watched her from the kitchen. She smiled when she saw me. Got your favorite, she said, holding up a small paper bag. Almond croissant. From that place near the office. I nodded. Thanks. She waited. Waited for more. A kiss, a joke, even eye contact. She didn't get it. Because the man she brought the croissant for was already gone. 2 hours later, I left. No ceremony. No raised voice. No last-minute confessions. I picked up the last of the boxes I'd stored quietly in the coat closet. Tucked the envelope between 2 plates on the dining table. Locked the door behind me. Inside the envelope was a letter. Short. Clean. Final. You laughed when he disrespected me. You smiled when I became invisible. Now you can have the silence you applauded. This house is yours. But I won't be part of your audience anymore. By the time she came downstairs, I was a memory. She texted first. Did you go somewhere? Then, are you okay? An hour later. Where are you? But I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to hurt her. Because I had nothing left to explain. She called around midnight. Then again at 12:17. And 12:34. The third one went straight to voicemail. I didn't block her. I just powered down the phone and listened to the quiet. The new apartment was colder, smaller, but it breathed differently. The air didn't carry her perfume or the echo of a woman trying to control every room she entered. It smelled like space, like newness, like me. The next day, a mutual friend texted. Laura's looking for you. Said something happened. You okay? I replied with one sentence. Yeah, I just finally left. No one asked why. They didn't have to. People had seen it. The public scenes. The offhand comments. The way she laughed louder when someone else was looking. They just didn't think I'd ever do it. But silence is funny like that. People mistake it for submission until it walks out the door and takes everything with it. Later that week, she showed up at my new place. She knocked. Soft at first, then harder. No shouting. No crying. Just presence. I didn't open. Through the peephole, I saw her face, confused, tired, stripped of the version of herself she used to project. She looked around, then pulled out her phone. A minute later, it vibrated on the table next to me. Can we talk? I watched it light up once. Twice. Then fade. And with it, the last thread she thought still connected us. The silence didn't crack her. It crushed her. It started with the texts. Can we talk? Please, just 5 minutes. I didn't mean to hurt you. You're blowing this out of proportion. I miss you. Each one came with a different tone, confusion, guilt, bargaining. But the one thing they all had in common? None of them mentioned what actually happened. Not the joke. Not the laughter. Not the months of slow dismissal. Because in her world, the damage didn't count if no one yelled about it. Then came the calls. Day. Night. Middle of meetings. I'd let them ring out. She left voicemails like prayers. Desperate, breathless, half believing someone might still be listening. But I wasn't. Not because I was cruel. Because I was done. Mutual friends started messaging. Some cautious. Some bold. You really left? She says you won't even talk. Is there a chance you'll go back? I kept my replies short. Yeah. No. I'm not angry. Just finished. It confused them. They were used to breakups with fire, drama, crying, one big mistake. Not this. Not a man leaving the stage while the play was still going. Then came her visit to my job. She waited outside. Didn't cause a scene. Just stood there, holding a coffee cup like a peace offering. I saw her through the glass and kept walking past. Later, she texted. You don't have to hate me. And for the first time, I typed something longer than 2 words. I don't. Hate takes energy. You don't get that anymore. No reply. The next day, I heard from her sister. Apparently, Youre had been staying there, crying a lot, trying to explain what went wrong, but couldn't say it out loud. Because when you convince yourself that the quiet one will always stay, you never learn how to speak when they finally go. She sent one final message. Not a plea, not an apology, a statement. You changed. And she was right. I changed the moment I realized I was trying to prove my worth to someone who'd stopped measuring. I changed the moment I saw her laugh at a line that cut through me and never looked back to see the wound. I changed the moment I understood that love without respect isn't love, it's audience management. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because by now, she wasn't messaging me. She was messaging the echo. The version of me who would have folded. Who would have come running. Who would have tried, again. But that man? He didn't survive the silence. He became it. They say people change. She used that line a lot after I left. She says you changed, one of her friends told me. I just nodded. Because she was right. I did. But not in the way she meant. I didn't become colder. I became clearer. The new apartment wasn't fancy. No skyline views. No double sinks. But the air was mine. I cooked simple meals. Went on long walks. Sat by the window with coffee and no questions hanging in the room. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody needed me to prove I was still present. I just was. That's what peace sounds like. Not a celebration. Not a grand speech. Just space. One morning, I saw her again. Corner cafe. She walked in as I was paying. Hair tied back. No makeup. Not sad. Not angry. Just quiet. She froze when she saw me. I gave a polite nod. She hesitated, then stepped forward. You look good, she said. I smiled. Not cruelly. Just calmly. I feel good. There was a moment. That pause between breaths when someone searches for the version of you they used to know. And realizes he's gone. She opened her mouth to say something else. I didn't wait. I stepped past her, coffee in hand, out into the street. She messaged later that day. It's strange seeing you like that. So calm. I didn't answer. Because closure doesn't come in a message. It comes when you don't need one. I started drawing again. Something I gave up years ago when she told me it was a waste of time. I started training again. Waking up early. Not to prove anything. Just to feel my pulse in my own hands again. No dramatic changes. No social media updates. Just a slow rebuild from the man she overlooked to the one I remembered. And as for her, I heard she moved into a smaller place. New job. Fewer friends. A version of quiet she didn't choose and didn't know how to survive. But that part? It's not my story anymore. The truth is, I didn't leave because of one joke. I left because she laughed, because she let herself forget the weight of what it meant to stand beside me. And once she forgot, I had nothing left to stay for. People ask if I miss her. I don't. I miss who I was before I tried so hard to keep her happy. And now that I have him back, there's nothing left to mourn. Let them say I changed. They're right. I finally chose myself. And I'm not sorry. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.